want to be appreciative of your time. So it was really, I know it's important to our Board of Education, and we have board members here. I know Joan Minneries is here, she's in the back in the right, in the purple. Our board president with us, Pam Rogers. Joan Minneries, Pam Rogers with us. And we're very grateful to Mayor Perry and we work so well with the rec department, and I know you guys do too, right? Middletown's an amazing town. We have so many resources here, thanks to our Township Committee and Mayor Perry, and I'm going to turn it over to him in 1 second. But I just want to let you know why we're doing this. Well, first of all, you know, it wasn't that long ago that we were doing a referendum. And this is Mrs. Gallagher, the business administrator, and myself. We came here along with members of the board, and we talked to this group right here. And it was tremendous insight in what we were doing and how we were doing it. And we were very grateful for the support we got and the critical feedback and the really good ideas. And so it was important to us, I know it was important to the board, that we come back and do that again. So we're just going to have like a town hall conversation. This is not actually one of our strategic planning seminars. Let's come meet with important constituents in our community and have a conversation and let you know how we're doing that process and what it looks like and get your feedback and your input. So without any further ado, I want to turn it over to Mayor Perry. Thanks for all his support of the schools, our children. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dr. George. I don't need this. Everybody can hear me, right?
Yes.
All right, good. Well, I want to thank everybody. Good afternoon, right?
Yep.
All right, good afternoon. I'm losing track of time myself. But I want to thank everybody for being here. And I want to obviously thank Janet Dellett, who is the director of our recreation, who affords you guys. I always love coming to the Senior Center for one reason. I never leave here without a question. Hopefully I'm able to give an answer, but I always get a smile on my way out. So I always love being at the Senior Center just for that reason. But I really want to thank my good friend, Dr. George, our great superintendent, who works so hard each and every day. And I want to thank our Board of Education President, Pam Rogers, and Joan Minuis, another member of our Board of Education. When I first became mayor earlier this year, it felt a little shaky. It felt like the Township Committee and the Board of Education was on a little rift, a little not solid ground. But I'm proud to say that over the course of the last 10 months now, Pam and I, Robin, and the members of the Township Committee, along with the school board, have forged a very good relationship, a solid relationship where dialogue is consistent. We are never going to know everything, right? We can all wake up every day and say, oh, I know, I don't need to hear anything else. I know it all. But you're wrong. You're always going to be wrong about that. And it's critically important to get feedback from the community, feedback from our seniors, feedback from our young families, to understand, to appreciate the differences of opinion, different perspectives that occur, and how the Middletown School District should move forward. Earlier this year, I was very vocal. I know the school board was very vocal, and unfortunately the realignment of school funding. Our school district got hit. It got hit very hard, and the Board of Education had to do their best with the hand that they were dealt. And listen, Trenton doesn't make sense a lot of the time. I get that. You don't have to tell me. I know firsthand. Because our school board has to come up with their budgets, and then all of a sudden you get a budget cut. Very difficult to figure out how you're going to spend your money, where you're going to spend your money, when you don't know how much money you're going to be getting. No business operates that way, but the state of New Jersey figures out, I guess, how they can do it that way. But I really got to commend Dr. George, Amy Gallagher, business administrator, Pam Rogers, Robin Stella, Joan Minuis, the entire school board for their activity and their efforts to bring the different communities across Middletown in on this. Figure out what ways can we make the school district better? What do you want to see? What do you want to ask questions for? And that's what these town halls are for. We have, I know that they're going to talk about it, but they released a strategic plan that I have the the extended version sitting on my desk because it's a lot thicker than this one. And of course, my staff hands me the thicker version rather than the executive summary here. But I just want to thank you all for being here. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoy always coming to the Senior Center, talking to you, understanding your perspectives on how we can be better. Because if you're not looking to be better constantly, then you're looking backwards. And I know that the Township Committee is doing that, and I know that the school board is doing that. So it's with great pleasure to introduce my friend and the President of the Board of Education, Pam Rogers.
Hi, it's so nice to see you all here. I didn't know how many people would be interested. We've heard a lot from the community, from the parents of the public school children, but we haven't heard a lot from the other stakeholders. And that's what today is about. We're trying to get different people engaged, and we want to hear your opinion. Like Mayor Perry said, we have these that you can fill out here. It's a survey, and you can give your opinion, and we really do want your opinion. This is not just lip service. We want to know what you think, what we can do to make our schools better, or even just to be consistent and to give the children the same education we've been giving them for years, but with less funding. In the next 5 years, we stand to lose $6.3 million in state funding. I know. So we just want to know how we can keep the children at the level of excellence that they're used to with less money. And we're willing to listen to anyone who will help us. And I mean, Mayor Perry and Deputy Mayor Fiore and the rest of the Township Committee have gotten many texts and emails and phone calls from me asking for help. And they always answer, and they're always very helpful. So if today something happens and you think of something later, you don't get a chance to say what you want here, make sure you reach out to us. There's an email address. It's strategicplanning@middletownk12.org. I don't know if it's in here, and the rest of this pamphlet, the remainder of this pamphlet, is also on there as well under strategic planning. So you can read more of it. You can email us with your thoughts anytime, and we want to hear from you. And that's what's most important. Feel comfortable here and tell us what you think. Even if you think we're not going to like it, we want to hear it. We really do. So I'd like to introduce Amy Gallagher. She's going to start our presentation. She's our business administrator.
Thank you, Pam. Just to follow up on what Mrs. Rogers was saying, on the front page of this packet, there is a web address on here for our strategic planning page on our district website. So it includes the email address that Mrs. Rogers spoke about, but it also includes a lot of other information, background information that you should read and get familiar with. The presentation that Mayor Perry has is on the website, the thick version, as he called it. What we did for today is we didn't have the amount of time that we had at the planned forums. We just had our first round of strategic planning forums this past week. We held 3 of them that were meant to be a kickoff to the whole process. And there is a 50 or some odd slide presentation up on our website. We've given you some excerpts from that presentation here today, but the full presentation is on the website. So just to hit upon the slides that we wanted to go over with you today, the first slide talks about our community, and we did spend some time at the first forums talking about the community at large. Middletown is not only the largest municipality in Monmouth County, and we are the 16th largest in New Jersey. We're also one of the, if not the largest, K-12 district across the state that is not urban, and we're suburban. So it is a very large district. The average district is, considerably smaller than us. So as we talked about at some of the other forums, a lot of the things that come out of Trenton are geared more toward those average-sized districts, and some of it doesn't translate well to us, particularly in the areas of funding and things like that, because we don't fit that model. We have approximately 66,000 residents here in Middletown. We have, I don't know if all of you are aware, but we do have 17 schools. We have 2 high schools, 3 middle schools, and 12 elementary schools. So there's a lot of facilities to take care of here in Middletown, which is something that we have to cover in our budget. As far as the other information, there's more background information on the website, but we just wanted to highlight those. We're going to talk to you a little bit about our student success initiatives and things that the district's been doing over the past few years in the area of education and so forth. I'm going to introduce Kim Pekas, our Assistant Superintendent, to go over that information with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing? So I'd just like to get a kind of temperature of the room a little bit. Raise your hand if you have a family member or a neighbor who's currently a student in one of our schools here in Middletown. Maybe a grandchild or a niece or nephew, or maybe your next door neighbor who goes to school. Okay, so there's quite a few of you. All right, so hopefully they're coming home and maybe once in a while sharing with you some of the things that they're doing in school. I know that doesn't happen often. I have my own children. I remember when they were little. Sometimes you have to drag it out of them, right? Otherwise, when you say, how was school today? Fine. What was the best part of the day? Lunch or recess, right? Does that sound familiar? That's like the first thing usually on their mind, right?
What'd you learn?
What did you learn? Nothing, you know. But you have to know, like, I got good at being, well, what did you do when you read today? What book did you read? What did you learn in math today? Did you work on adding or subtracting? You know, sometimes you have to know how to ask just that right question to actually get it out of them. But we've been working really hard the last couple of years here in Middletown to make our learning experiences for children much more engaging, much more hands-on, much more interactive. Instead of them sitting at desks like many of us probably did when we were in school, we sat in rows, we sat, you know, you kind of were afraid to move. You raised your hand if a question was asked, but other than that, it was the teacher's voice that was talking, doing most of the talking. Our classrooms don't look that way anymore. You know, we can't continue to provide education in a way that was fit for a world that's very different from the world that our students live in now and what they will live in when they get older and start to get jobs. You know, we've been in school board with the Board of Education the last couple of days sitting in workshops ourselves learning, because we're always learning. Even as adults, we're always learning, right? And one of the things that really struck me as I sat in the room with one of the board members yesterday, actually, Mr. Donlin, was a slide, and a presenter said to us, research shows, and now put your grandchildren, your niece and nephews, put your neighbors, put them in mind when I say this, that 68% of the jobs that will exist in the next 10 years, so when your grandchildren or niece or nephews or your neighbors are getting into the workforce, don't even exist today. That's kind of scary, right? Like, we're preparing students to become productive workers and citizens here in our country for jobs that we don't know even what they're going to be. You know, years ago, we knew the kind of jobs most kids were going to leave us with and become employed, and we kind of had an idea of the type of skills they had to learn. So right now, we're on a unique period of time in our country where we as educators and we as schools and we as a community, because you're all stakeholders, and we think of you often, you know, as stakeholders, as part of our school community, of how we can help prepare our students, your children, your family, your friends and neighbors, to be successful when they get out of school, right? Because that's what we all want. We all want the American dream for them, right? We all want them to become productive workers, own homes, be active citizens, and do better than us, right? I don't know, I want that for my children. So we are always changing and thinking about how to instill those skills. And kids today have very different needs. You know, not every kid is cut from the same cloth. You probably know that of your own. I see some of you going like this. You know that of your own grandchildren and your family members and friends, right? They all have different interests. Some like math more. Some like science. Some would rather read, you know, and they like to write. Some are more into physical activity. We all know, right, that kids are different. So in our classrooms, our teachers are working really hard, and we as a district and our Board of Education supports us in getting the resources and the professional development for our teachers to meet every student's needs. Social media, you know, the internet, cell phones, it's introduced students to newer topics at much younger age. You know, they're exposed to a lot more. And that can sometimes cause them to have feelings and conflict with their friends that maybe they wouldn't have had it at such a young age in the past. you know? So we work very closely with, in the curriculum department, with other departments like the special education department and the Office of Student Activities. I know my colleague, Mrs. Walker, is going to speak to you. She's my counterpart in the district, to provide students with emotional support, counseling, opportunities for them to talk about conflict in their life or trauma, you know, that they're experiencing, or hardship. Because what we realized is when we can help students overcome those issues in their lives, they're available to learn. You know, sorry, am I stepping on your toes?
No, that's good. I just don't want to get up and
when they come into school not feeling so good that day because they just walked out of a house that maybe there was a lot going on that morning, they're not available to us to learn, you know, because that's what they're thinking about. They can't pay attention to what's going on. So we provide those supports, and I know you'll go a little bit deeper than that.
It's fine. No, because we don't want to get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
I think you...
So one of the other really exciting things that we've done in the district is create what we call, I don't know if you've heard of it, the Arts Academy. I see some heads shaking. You might have some family members who are in that Arts Academy. We have a lot of different pathways and academies for our students. The STEM pathway, so it's for students who like science and technology, engineering, which we know is a huge field that a lot of students are preparing to enter into when they graduate. We have a government law and public policy pathway. We have a business administration pathway. Our newest academy, our newest pathway is the Arts Academy. And you know that our schools are very famous for lavish productions. I don't know if any of you, I think some of you I know come to some of our plays and you see our students perform. I know Mrs. Minuis and Mrs. Caminiti in the back, they always comment, and Mrs. Rogers, about our plays are like Broadway shows here in Middletown. And the newest academy is really meeting the needs of those students who have a real passion and interest in the arts, in drama, in theater, and in music, and most recently dance. Because of our relationship and partnership with the Township Committee, we're using the MAC over by the train station to offer dance classes to our students who really excel with that. So I just wanted to highlight for you, because sometimes it gets lost. You know, if you're not really involved in the schools, you don't really know all the great things that are happening. But we really are doing great things for students here in Middletown. One of my colleagues from another district said to me the other day when we were at the convention, you know, a lot of districts look to see what Middletown's doing because they want to be like Middletown when it comes to providing students really good experiences and preparing, you know, them for the future. So that makes me feel good, makes all of us feel good. It should make everyone in Middletown feel good, that we're seen as a beacon for education in the state of New Jersey, and other people want to be like us. You know, and the good thing is we do it, and we do it pretty efficiently and thoroughly. You know, with being prudent about the way we use tax dollars to support our students. So it is getting more difficult, but I'll leave that to Mrs. Gallagher to readdress. That becomes the business side.
Yeah, in closing on that, the educational initiatives and why we thought this was so important is because, you know, we just came from school boards, our board members were down there doing the workshops like you heard, and we were recognized in an evidence-based process which is called Future Ready. So as we're preparing students for jobs that don't exist, the federal government back in 2014, the President of the United States at the time, President Obama, put together an initiative called Future Ready. New Jersey, over the past, from there until where we are now, 4 to 5 years, has taken that to an evidence-based process, working with school boards, the Department of Education, and higher education to really come up with exemplars of what that would look like, and then created a certification called Future Ready Certification. So that came online 3 years ago with the inaugural status of bronze. And you could get it as one building, or you could get it multiple buildings, or you could get it district-wide if you were consistently implementing best practice teaching and learning and preparing students through integrating technology for developing the infrastructure necessary to really deliver instruction. And this is more than just technology, in that personalized, or what we really like to call individualized. We have 9,563, I believe today, students in our district, and we want each and every one of them to be able to receive their education in an individualized approach. And so this is the exemplars and how you can do that. On that first year, we got bronze status. Then there was elevated to a silver status. This past year, there were more than 400 schools that applied for Future Ready certification. We received the highest level, silver with distinction. That means based on our leadership, based on our infrastructure, based on our teaching pedagogy, the way we are delivering instruction, we are doing that in an individualized approach that prepares students for those jobs that don't exist yet. And the only way to do that is to do it in creating those success opportunities for each student, playing to their strengths, but also helping them remediate the areas where they can improve. So I appreciate you hitting on the Future Ready piece. That would not happen without great township support. That would certainly not happen with the support of our Board of Education. So this year there's only 4 districts in the entire state of New Jersey that received that distinction. We have over 600 school districts in New Jersey. I think it's 612. Only 4 districts got that, and we were one of them. And so we're very proud of that. And we needed you to know what it is we're charged to do with in this time before we could talk about the finances and all the other things and what that looks like and state funding and the other things that we have to turn it over to. So without any further ado, when we start talking about numbers, we go back to Ms. Gallagher, and we're going to give her an opportunity to talk about so that you know the impact on taxes and everything.
Thank you, Dr. George. So as previous comments had started talking about today, we are unfortunately facing some challenges over the next several years as well. We have just kicked off and what this meeting is all about is our new strategic planning process, where we want to come up with a 5-year plan to go forward on what we want the district to look like and how we're going to capitalize on our strengths and how we're going to address our challenges. So a few things that we want to make everyone aware of that are things that we need to address are included in these slides. The first slides that I'm going to start talking about are starting with the student enrollment. As Dr. George mentioned, we have approximately 9,500 students in our district at this time, but over the past several years, that number has been going down. And when I first started here back in 2010, we were over 10,000 students. So, it's been ticking down little by little each year. Some of the conversations we've had is, there is building going on in town, so it's hard for people to understand when they see new developments going up, how our enrollments are going down. But if you look at the statistics, we are getting some new students in from these new developments, but we're losing more, leaving the district. The district as a whole, the median age is going up. The percentage of the residents over 65, one thing that was interesting and it's in the deck that's up on our website, between 2010 and now, that percentage has gone up about 10%. So the community is changing. We are doing new buildings, and we are getting some new students, but really all that's doing is stemming the tide of declining enrollment. And Middletown's not alone in that. There's some areas of the state that are growing, but a lot of the, Monmouth County and Ocean County, a lot of those enrollments are going down. So it's not an anomaly here, but it's something we have to deal with because it does impact even further our state aid. There was legislation 2 years ago or a year and a half ago called S2 that did reallocate state aid amongst districts, and as Mrs. Rogers mentioned and others have mentioned, we are losing money based upon that reallocation of funds. But in addition to that, we're also losing funds because our enrollment is going down because they award your state aid based on your number of students. So we've had that impact, and we will continue to see the impact of that over the next several years. So that's something that we have to plan for. So these charts here were just to give everybody an idea since 2015-16 through now, and we're constantly updating them, and we've got an enrollment projection that we had done a couple of years ago that goes out to 2022. We are scheduled to continue to tick down. Now the other wrinkle in this is that that's not happening equally across the district. As I mentioned before, we have 17 schools. Some schools, the enrollments have actually gone up a little bit, some have gone down. Some have gone down more than what we thought, some have not gone down as much. So that's the other thing we have to address, is that it's not equally, the level is not equally going down across the board. We have some fluctuations, particularly at the high schools. Middletown South is actually going up, Middletown North has been going down, and across the middle schools and elementaries we have some fluctuations as well. So this is all conversations and discussions that the board and the administration, we've all been having, and then will be part of our strategic planning process and some of the results of that process of how we're going to address this going forward.
I have a question to you.
I'm sorry?
As just a Board of Education, I heard now they are stopping SAT test. What is your input? Do you think students will get benefit, or do you think standard will go down? SAT.
It's not SAT.
Yes, for high schoolers who are seeking for college after that.
We currently are, participating in the ACT for our 11th graders and providing the opportunities for those students that take the SATs. There are different regions of the state that are more affected by that, the stopping of the SAT.
Right.
And our region, it still is a regular admission standard. Out west, you see more of the ACT or more of a movement to do away with it. The SATs or the ACT having that standard admittance. It's all very individual depending on the college, but we are still participating, to answer your question.
No, my question is to you, what is your input? What do you think standard of education will go higher or standard of education will go lower?
But, our position on SAT as a high school assessment, we think it's a more accurate predictor than and I think students take it, I don't know if it's a more accurate predictor, but students take it more seriously because they know they might need it to go into college. In most cases, they still do, than another standardized test from the state. So we're in favor, and our input with the state is for the secondary level to use the SAT or the ACT, which students are already taking into college, as the evaluation standard on secondary. So we have made no moves to move away from it.
Some schools are losing students. Does any teacher know what unemployment is? You give it to teachers, some of the teachers to prevent putting money out that it's not used?
So I think that's a great question of fiscal responsibility. Let me tell you how we handle it. When we have retirements at the end of each year, and in any year, we may have upwards of 60 retirements. As we're planning and preparing for this slight declining enrollment from year to year, we do not actually hire those positions back for the following year until we have all sections worked out. So the hiring process goes through the summer to make sure that we're being efficient, as you're requesting, to make sure we're being efficient with the number of teachers based on the number of students that we have.
You said to be efficient. When I went to school, we had one vice principal in the state of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. One vice principal. Now schools have 5, 6, 8, 12 vice principals. For what? The only thing some of them know is where they go get their check again. That's the only thing they know.
You have two parents
Appreciate
at
your
home.
perspective on it.
So moving on to the next slide, we talked about the enrollments across the board. Another slide that we included in this abbreviated version of our presentation from last week.
Businesses potentially moving forward in the future. Electricians, plumbers, all of those kind of things. But that's a share. We do a lot of that in district, but we do some of that out of district as
So
well.
this is the total number, both.
Yes, of
Yes.
all of our students.
So the next few slides that you have in your deck talk about our buildings. As we've mentioned, we have 17 schools here throughout the district. And the information you have in front of you includes the years they were built, the square footages, and we have some, estimates for capacities and enrollments. But the main point of these slides is to let everybody know that, our buildings are not new. We have done some renovations and additions in the past since these buildings were built, but as a whole, our buildings are continuing to age, and, we have a portion of our budget is to maintain those buildings. We've done a lot of things over the past several years, such as we've put new roofs on all the buildings. We've done a considerable amount of work on the HVAC systems in our middle and high schools. We've done lighting upgrades throughout the district to go to LED to save energy. We've done a lot of major projects, but these buildings will continue to age and continue to need investments. So that's something that we have to also address going forward. The needs of these buildings and how to keep them as appropriate educational spaces for all of our students, and continue to not only maintain the basics but also to keep the educational spaces current with the needs of the students as the curriculum changes, and we have to adapt to that. So, we've done some, for example, we did some upgrades to our media center at High School North this year, just, making it more, making the layout more friendly to how students are using these spaces now, with more places for devices to charge and more collaborative seating and so forth. But, these are all things that we have to deal with going forward. So you have the elementary schools and the secondary schools listed here. The next slide that we have is this one, this 5-year projection. What we wanted to show was based upon the information that we have, and these are very high-level projections because it's difficult to project out, the size of our budget, what the actual results would be. And I also wanted to tell everybody to keep in mind this is without capital improvements. So, because that varies for us year to year depending upon what the needs are. And we also try to find ways to finance that outside the budget, such as we had this energy savings improvement plan, which was budget neutral, and other ways to fund things. But just taking a look at a high-level projection without capital improvements and without any other changes in our operation, whether that would be in staffing or whatever that would be, based upon the maximum amount that we can raise, increase our tax levy, which is 2%, and with that revenue that would generate, and the state aid as projected to decrease over the next several years, as we talked about, going from this year's amount of $16,600,000 down to like $12,600,000 over the next several years, and other revenue, and based upon our operating expenses and the assumptions for the increases in those operating costs. You can see, the first column is, we balance because that's our current year budget. We have to balance, but without making changes here, we are projected to start generating deficits that will increase, as the years go by, which, of course, we're not allowed to have a budget that doesn't balance. So we are going to have to be making changes to to eliminate these deficits going forward, because we can't operate that way. So this is the major fiscal challenges that we are facing at this point. It's not, we're facing declining state aid, but we're also facing a cap on what we can raise through taxes, and there really isn't, other revenue for us to plug in that's, a large amount that would cover these deficits. So this is a major part of the conversation as we go forward. We talk about all of our great initiatives and the services and everything we provide for our students. We have to find a way to continue to do that.
Are there any questions at this time? Yes, you have a question?
What is the status of redistricting? I went through it and everyone just fine.
Yeah.
That is going to save taxpayers money by closing some little youth schools.
So the status of that is, thank you for your comments. The status for that is that we're engaging in the community forums like this to get the community
You
input.
get pushback from parents, but it works. They do just fine.
to your point, and what we're getting in survey questions now, in the next round, and we really encourage you to come to our second round of forums, we're going to be talking about the community input. We have more than 10,000 responses to our surveys, plus additional responses from our first 3 forums, and then this opportunity to engage in you. Any information you want to email us or handwrite us or call us on the phone, you know, we'd be just as happy to talk to you on the phone if you wanted. 732-671-3850. My direct extension is 1002. Give me a call. We can talk about it. But you have that. You have my cell. You know that. So yes, everything is being considered. Because as Ms. Gallagher's, and it's a great point that you bring up, as Ms. Gallagher's alluding to, we must do things differently moving forward to make sure that we are most fiscally responsible to our taxpayers and even to us as educators, and you know how the educators are. All we care about is the education, right? But if we're not fiscally responsible, we can't be educationally responsible. So for us, we know facing the deficits we are, they have to go hand in hand. So yes, we're looking at changing our footprint, absolutely. We call them enrollment challenges at this status right now, not redistricting. The reason we do that is because we want to make sure we get the feedback from you, the community first, before we talk about where we're going next. But I really appreciate your feedback.
I'm for it if it's going to save money in the long run. And everyone will live through it and it'll work out just fine.
We're going to have to look at changing our footprint to be more efficient. So thank you for that feedback.
We just have one last slide. We talked about the tax levy and the increases on that being capped at 2%, which is the regulation that we have to abide by. But the last slide was just to show everybody hypothetically, if we were to say, you know what, we'll cover our deficits by raising the tax levy to cover the deficits, and to show you hypothetically what that would translate into as far as a percentage increase. So as you can see, for next year, if we had to cover the deficit just by raising the tax levy, it'd be a 3.6% increase versus a 2% increase. And going all the way through 24-25, you know, by that point, you'd be looking at a tax increase of 8% to cover that deficit. So first of all, we're not allowed to do that. And second of all, I'm sure nobody wants that. So this is, you know, because there are people that we do get feedback from that say, you know, well, you know, we don't mind paying more, we want to invest in the schools, you know, we want our students to have what they need, but we honestly can't even do that. So this is, you know, this is a dilemma we're facing. So that really concludes the information that was presented on our slides, except for the last one, which is just to show some information about the enrollments at our elementary schools and some of the inefficiencies that we're dealing with there. So, I don't know, Kim, did you want to speak about that? Okay, so the last slide is just to demonstrate to you, we do have, as we mentioned, we have 12 elementary schools, but in order to keep those elementary schools, all 12 of them operating and keeping the classes that we need to service those students across the district, it results in us running extra sections of elementary classes that we wouldn't need just based upon total student enrollment. So this slide, you know, tells us that we, out of a total of 3,846 elementary students at this time, we are running 178 classes at all of the different levels, 178 sections. But we really, you know, if we were just looking at the population without worrying about which school they were in, we would need 154. So it just shows you that, you know, the fact that we have to run more sections than what we would need if we didn't have so many of these schools. So it's just something else that we have to factor into the equation.
And that goes to speak to a comment made earlier about, are we looking very closely at the efficiencies? Not just the educational programs, but the efficiencies. And I want you to know that we are. I want to throw a shout out to Mayor Perry and to the Township Committee and also to our PFA and River Plaza, because thanks to the great shared service work of the Township and the school district, we got a safe routes to school grant for more than $1 million. That would not have been possible without the work of our township. And with our township administrator, but certainly the township committee and the leadership of Mayor Perry. So, I really want to thank you for that too. And at this time, we just want to ask questions of all of you, or give you an opportunity to ask questions of us.
I live in the Middletown Village District.
Okay.
Are you aware that we are getting 12 new homes and 176 condos?
Yes, we are. And that's a great question. We are looking very closely with our latest demographic study that we did just a few years ago, which goes through 2022. Every new development that has actually been permitted is on that map. We worked with the township with that. We used for our demographer here in town, so that we could get the most that works directly with the township. We've had open lines of communication with the township every step of the way in that. And so anything that's been permitted is factored into the numbers. And that there's been a lot of questions about the demographic study. And I'm sure that we will face more. But to this point, the performance of the demographic study has been within 2% in actual numbers of what it was projected to do. So it's pretty accurate, and that your questions are right on point. Can you come to our next forum? We really like you. And that's really why we're here. That's why we're here to engage you and talk to you, because I say this about our students. I meet with our students the same way, and I say to our students, especially our high school students, juniors and seniors, I'm like, you're experts in the school. You've been here, you're a senior in high school, you've been in our schools for 13 years. What do you think? And you have another question, I want to know what you think.
I have 3 children that went to high school north, and they had a wonderful education. They're all college graduates, and I appreciate that. But I don't appreciate still paying those high school taxes for 30 years since they graduated.
One of the things, to your point, that we're looking at closely right now is that our senior citizen population in Middletown is expanding. So Middletown, because of great longtime taxpayers like yourself, and because of great leadership from the township, is not a place that people want to leave. We understand that. We know we need to be as efficient as possible. Our board charges us with that responsibility. We take that responsibility very seriously. As Mayor Perry already said, under the current leadership of the board, we are regularly meeting, we are discussing those concerns, and we want to, as educators, protect the great programs and services we provide, but we understand in this current footprint, it's not sustainable, as you're saying. We get that. Appreciate that. Yes?
I feel as though we're senior citizens. So I agree with that. We cannot have our time because we have to help the generations.
Yeah, but we know you're also on fixed incomes.
Yeah, I know.
And we understand that too, and we appreciate your generosity. I want you to know that. We understand you're on fixed incomes, and we understand, the taxes that we pay in New Jersey are different than most places. Your friends that live down south that are asking you when you're coming down, right? They're asking me when I'm coming down, by the way. We get that. We take that responsibility seriously. But we appreciate your generosity.
I'm just a Jersey girl. You want to know what taxes were in 1952? For the year, $125. Now we're up to 2019. I pay $6,000 something. But I got a beautiful piece of property. My development was the first down here. Beautiful lot, 75 by 200. I could build another house, but will the township let me? I don't know.
Appreciate that. Yes.
What baffles me is you have all this new construction on one hand, and then you're decreasing the school enrollment?
Yeah. You absolutely, I'd love to hear from you.
So, I don't know, I'm sure you all get our Middletown Matters, right? Twice a year, we send out a newsletter each year on what the township's doing. And this year, because I wasn't going to run away from it, right, was development. We see building happening all over, right? You look at the last 5 developments, the 5 most recent developments, okay? Every single one of those has one thing in common. they were all rejected at their original application by the planning board. Every single one of them. And at one point in time, before there were two high schools, before it was North and South, it was Middletown High School. At which point you had 14,000 kids in the school district. You're at now at 9. And when you download the thicker version, not the Reader's Digest version of this strategic plan, you can actually see in there, they list out all the most recent population trends. And we took a look at all the most recent building that has occurred in Middletown as well. And what you find in that, by looking at the elementary, middle, and high schools, because of those new developments, where those new developments are occurring, you're adding approximately 0.3 students, 0.3, into those school districts. That's how much you're adding. Now, I know it's an easy line to say, you're adding all this new building. What's going to happen to the schools? And to your point, there is going to, at some point, discussions, as I know they are occurring now, about realignment, sending certain kids to certain schools, and that's healthy. We should have those discussions. And I know under the leadership of Dr. George and Pam, those are going to happen. But what is interesting to note, and that they brought up, is our population is also getting older, right? So you see these shifts often in townships. You see the north side of town get a little bit older, kids move out. You see the south side get a little bit younger, which is what you're seeing. Lincroft, you're seeing Lincroft Elementary School. Population is getting up because the older population is moving out of Lincroft and downsizing, and young families are coming in and moving into those areas. So the school population goes up. But on the north side of town, you have those young families that are now in Lincroft. They're at the end of the spectrum when it comes to their children moving on to college and careers outside of, and buying their own homes. So I understand it's politically expedient sometimes to say, well, you have massive construction going on. Well, that has been going on for decades. It's just now, unfortunately, coming to fruition in certain, because municipal land use laws don't allow us to prohibit things. And we're talking about $9 million and an 8% increase in our budget. In certain aspects, we didn't have $200 million to spend to buy land, right? You just don't have that ability. We have an $80 million budget in town. So I understand why it seems so much building. How is the school population going down? Well, at one point we had 14,000 kids going through one high school. Now you have two high schools and you're sub 9,000. So that's why in my mayor's message this year in Middletown Matters, I specifically hit on the subject of development. People aren't having, I'm looking at Gran right here, people aren't one of 11 anymore, right? They're one of 2. I'm one of 4, and I think people think that's crazy. They look at me and I'm like, oh my gosh, one of 4. Well, Calvin Coolidge was the president of the United States when River Plaza Elementary was built in 1928, okay? You weren't one of 2, you weren't one of 4. You were one of 8, you were one of 11. And that was just how it was. But now you may have more families living in town, but there's less children. And those children grow up, they move out, they go to Hoboken for a little while, they go into the city for a little while, and then eventually they come back because it's too expensive to live there. So I know that development is a tough issue, but I'm not one to shy away and not talk about it. Because it's easy to go one route. But when you step back and you think about it, and you look at the demographics, and you look at the aspects of our population, it's very easy to see the changes that are occurring. And you know, it'll be interesting. We're going to have a census come up, right? It's good. It's just starting. We'll see. Is Middletown going to lose population? Probably. Probably the population will go down. It's not going to be 66,000 anymore. You know, 64, 63,000 people. So, and there are real life scenarios that we have to think about of how is that going to impact the town? How is it going to impact us? So, you know, I appreciate that concern. I have the same concern. I live right at the corner of Cherry Tree Lane and Kings Highway. My house is right on that corner. If you don't think Taylor Lane is a concern of mine, it is. It is a concern of mine. But you know what I know is that I'm able to work with the people that live in those neighborhoods to address their concerns. It's easy to think that somebody is going to cross 35 at Cherry Tree Farm Road, go through Taylor Lane, all the way wind down Cherry Tree Lane, to hop onto Kings Highway and go to the train station from there, rather than just turning onto 35 to avoid a couple traffic lights. That's not going to happen. And you just gotta demonstrate to folks that live in those areas that, listen, it's not land owned by the town, but we can do our best to mitigate what is going to be happening in those areas. And that's what we try and do. And you're not gonna make everybody happy. That's not this game. I wasn't elected to be the prom king. I was elected to lead. And sometimes leadership means doing things that may not be the most popular things. Pam has the same responsibility. Dr. George has a massive enterprise that he's trying to run. You think about it, there are businesses all across the state of New Jersey that have less budgets than he does. He's running a massive enterprise. But his job is to be able to give the students a quality education. And that's why the partnership between the Board of Education that I very much, and he gave the Township Committee a lot of credit, and he deserves a lot of credit, and you know, the River Plaza community deserves a lot of credit with that safe routes to school. You look at River Plaza right now, in 3 years, that is going to look so different because of the safe routes to school, the new county park that's happening right there, the Swimming River Park that's going to be happening right there. It's going to be a beautiful area that will enhance. And hey, Calvin Coolidge will be proud. That building's still standing. You know?
I want to say, if you ever want to teach history, you know, thank you. I'm sitting here thinking how great it is that we're doing this together and we're giving this perspective together. And the law changes, the land law changes is very important because the school law has changed during that time too. So that's really important. So as an example, when there were 14,000 students, and some of you might have been in that population at the one Middletown at that time, there were triple sessions. By law, that would no longer be legal also. So, I mean, that's how much, going back to the gentleman's comments earlier about Pennsylvania, back in the day, the law has changed a great deal. I know we have some questions in the back.
You, Dr. George, you are talking about great cooperation with the Township Committee. I wonder if you have discussed with the Township Committee why there are several pilot programs coming into town, which is, in essence, taking the tax dollars away from the school district, and what has been their response. Not away from what you have already, but away from future taxation, and what has been their response.
What pilots are you referring to?
I'm referring to, at the present time, you know this, Village 35, the commercial property that's coming up is a pilot program. We've been told this is true.
By whom?
By the Township Committee.
Well, I lead the Township Committee, okay? And as I've said to Dr. George, as I've said to Pam, as I've said to Amy Gallagher, who explains pilots better than any other person I know, the Township Committee in no way, shape, or form is going to put a pilot on the residential portions of that property.
Excuse me, that's not in fact true from what I understand.
I'm the mayor, and I'm telling you, Phyllis, that we are not negotiating in zero way, shape, or form. Read my lips, no new taxes. We are not negotiating a pilot on the residential portion of Village 35.
Time to listen to me for a moment, Tony. Okay? Number one, we have been told, this may or may not be true, that the affordable housing component will be under pilot.
Every affordable housing project has to be a pilot.
Then don't tell me residential is not going under pilot.
Every affordable housing project in the state of New Jersey has to be. It is required that it has to be.
I'm arguing that you just told me none of the residential is under pilot. It is 70.
The only way that affordable housing works is under not a pilot negotiated by the township.
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing that that's the rules. It's fine with me that that's the rules. But don't tell me it's not happening, is what I'm saying. The other thing is, the commercial will be under pilot. Now, I was at the Township Committee meeting where your colleague, Mr. Fiore, said, when people questioned this, oh, it's okay because businesses don't have children. Well and good, but businesses bring money and bring traffic, and they could bring a lot of taxes into the school district, and they're not. Because people under a pilot program, the school district gets 0% of the payment from the businesses. Zero.
Not true. You can negotiate, any pilot program can be negotiated in any way, shape, or form. Is that not true?
Public?
Is it, I'm sorry?
I've tried to get it on Oprah. I was denied. Will you make it public?
Make what public?
The pilot agreement you have.
As I've stated prior, there is no negotiated pilot or conversations regarding that pilot. You can shake your head, Phyllis. I'm telling you.
Have you been to planning board meetings?
As you know, I have a designee that goes to planning board meetings that sits in for me on planning board meetings.
There is a pilot program. There will, maybe there is not at this moment, but there will.
So that would be the reason why Oprah would be denied, is because no record
They make everybody, exactly.
No record exists.
That it hasn't
Correct.
happened yet. But
Okay,
it's
well that would be
it's
no
in
record
progress.
exists.
It's in progress.
So I think this conversation goes back to the fact that laws continuously change, and we have to work within those laws, and we have to work together. And that's why we're here to talk to you, and that's why I'm grateful for the Township Committee and for Mayor Perry being there and having these tough conversations. And Phyllis, I'm grateful to you, because at the end of the day, this is what this is all about for us. We really do want to have these conversations. Obviously, there's some misunderstandings. Mayor Perry's clarifying that. We're going to continue to work together to continue to clarify as much as we possibly can. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Do you think it was unfair of the state to cut funding to the Middletown schools?
Okay, so I'm educated, right? I'm also a taxpayer. And when I look on both sides of this, I think we have owned this. If you look at what we're doing, we're looking at the dollars we believe we should be getting. We believe we should be held accountable, as the gentleman said earlier, to run efficient schools. I know what I pay in taxes. I know what you pay in taxes. I know how disproportionate it is around the country. It's not fair. Mayor Perry is charged with that. I get it. So am I. I'm charged. We own that. So no, we don't think it's fair we don't think it's unfair that your enrollment plays a role in this. Where it gets unfair, and Mayor Perry worked with me on this, and so have our legislators, our elected officials, Declan O'Scanlan, Assemblywoman, Damaso, thank you, Assemblywoman Damaso. We have all actually been working on this to get fair funding for special education, because our special education costs are going up as our freeholders, and we have one of our own that's a freeholder here, in Dr. Scharfenberger, right? We've all been working on this because we're not getting our fair funding for special education costs. As we talked about earlier, they are more expensive. The laws change on that. The needs are more expensive. And the number of students we're serving has never been higher than it is right now. So we have been down to the State House. I, along with Deborah White, one of our board members, we went down. We testified in Trenton. I continue to go down. We continue to get representation from our local elected officials, the freeholders, the assembly that represent us are going down there and saying we've got to fund special education fairly. I've met with Speaker Sweeney. I have told him our plan. I brought him in to Monmouth Ocean Educational Services, where I serve as board president, showed him our special needs program, how comprehensive they are, what it takes to run a very comprehensive special education program, how expensive it is. So no, we need more funding for that, but there has to be a reckoning. It's not fair to the taxpayers here. We get that. Part of that reckoning is what we're doing with strategic planning. We own that. We have to change our footprint. We have to do things differently than we're doing it right now. It's not fair to your generosity. It's not sustainable, is what you're hearing from the mayor. So, thanks. These are all great questions, by the way.
You gotta go. See you later.
I appreciate you, all your time.
Well, but before everybody leaves, we just wanted to make everybody aware, we do have 2 more strategic planning forums coming up, November 13th and December 11th. We encourage all of you to come. And we also have a survey online. We have hard copies of it here. If anyone wants to fill it out on paper, they can. But we would encourage you also to look online at the website that's on the, on the front of the presentation.
I'll stay and take it from you. I'll give you
Does
my
anyone
pen.
else want a paper survey?
Here's my pen. Will you still have it?
No.
Oh, God, I need help. I just get up. Where are you going? On the bus.
Not directly from the...
I know. Do you have anything to hold? No, once I'm up, I'm up.
Yeah, and then
Once I'm up, I'm up.
hey, and guess what? They did. They changed it. They changed where the lottery goes.
When I get up, I need a few
The
seconds.
lottery now goes to the pension system.
Give an update.
The New Jersey Public Employee Pension is where $1 billion in funding goes. Yeah.
But if you want to fill this out, actually,
See you
it's
later.
easy to
See you,
do
Grandma.
online, but if you want to, right, but you
Yeah,
can
there's no reason anymore.
Thank
No
you
reason
for
anymore. So
coming.
yeah, so it goes to the public employee pension system. And $1 billion. $1 billion from the lottery. No longer goes directly to the schools, it goes to the public employee pension system. This is where PERS is where anytime you buy a lottery ticket, that's where it goes to. So.
Youngest mayor.
Thank